everybody. Welcome to episode 8 of the Beach Boys podcast. We have a very exciting episode for you today. We've been talking about doing this month since we started the podcast, so very happy to be doing it. We have a new guy joining us. We have Scott joining us from New York. Thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you. And he reached out to me a while ago. We were talking about doing an episode about some of our favorite chord progressions with the Beach Boys, and he was somebody that had mentioned interest in doing this episode, so we're very happy to have him. And we got Nate, and basically what we're going to do for this episode is just go through a handful of Beach Boys songs. We each picked 5, and we're just going to go through, talk about the progression, analyze it. It's going to get really nerdy, which I'm excited for. We're going to reach peak nerdiness in this episode. So before we get started, we'll just go around and maybe just do a little brief introduction for who we are, what our instrument is, how we got introduced to the Beach Boys, what our experience is playing their music, and that's about it. You want to start out, Scott?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm the new guy. I've been a Beach Boys fan since I was a little kid. My dad brought home a 10 Greatest Hits CD that you would get at the car wash or something like that, and I was just instantly hooked on the sound. And I don't come from a musical family. But my first instrument was the drums. My dad brought home a drum set. I learned how to play. I devoured everything I could find on how to be a good drummer and how to read music and everything like that. And I joined the band at my school, and I was in marching band, pep band, jazz band, everything for drums. And at the same time, I started to noodle around on guitar and bass and piano and some other instruments. And soon after that, like around the middle of high school, guitar became my main instrument. So now that's currently what I play mainly. And I was in a surf rock / rockabilly band down here on Long Island for about 13 years. We played every summer. We would play all over the beach huts out here on the eastern end of Long Island. And we didn't do too many Beach Boys songs because we didn't really have the harmony capabilities. You know, it was really me and my brother singing vocals, and then my buddy Sean would add a harmony. And so we did a couple of their early tunes, but then there were some nights where we got really, if we were in the mood, we would open with a 3-part rendition of You're Welcome right into Heroes and Villains.
Oh yeah.
That would kick off our show.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And
I
then-
have to hear a video of that or something.
Yeah, we could probably find some archival footage of the Defenders, we were called, doing that. But now I've got a family. I've got 2 kids. I'm married to a music teacher. I still play music at home on a daily basis. It's my passion. And anytime I get together with my buddies or with my cousins and brothers, we all jam and we share a love, deep nerdy love for the Beach Boys music. They've always been my number 1 favorite group. I've never kind of strayed from them, and everything that I listened to since then, there's always some random connection back to the Boys, you know.
Totally.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm a lifelong fan, and this is a great time to be a fan. I've been a fan for over 2 decades, you know, and like it seems like just with social media and everything like that, it's easier to connect with younger Beach Boys fans. I used to be the young guy on the Pet Sounds mailing list, like in the 90s. I was, you know, in my teens, and I was the only younger guy. But now it seems like I'm the same age as a lot of guys that are doing podcasts and on Reddit and stuff like that. And actually, probably a majority are younger than I am. So that's so cool to me. Like that, every generation gets introduced to this music, and it's like it'll never fade. You know.
That's a lot of the feedback that we've been getting from the podcast too, is we get a lot of people saying it's so great to see that the younger generation is, you know, really just following the Beach Boys and just paying tribute to them and honoring their music. And
it's just so good. And there's what I can't believe is the amount of material that they have recorded and the stuff that's still not released, you know,
right.
that like just keeps us excited, you know, like that mystery of what are we going to get, you know. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
crazy that they can basically release an album every year of what's to us new material. I mean, aside from that, we've heard it on bootlegs. So, like a regular band would, more material than a regular band would in most cases. In their current band, you know.
And just the way that their stuff ages, you know, like the way that, you know, the way I listen to Sunflower now is not the same way it hit me as a 20-year-old or something like that. And the way that I listen to, you know, Love You today is different than it was 10 years ago. And it's just such a rich repertoire that
Absolutely.
it's
like a fine wine.
Exactly.
With age.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, very happy to have you. Appreciate you doing this. So my introduction to the Beach Boys was a little weird because I've been a musician since I was in 5th grade, and then I went to school for jazz guitar. I was really into jazz. And when I was in jazz school, a friend of mine went and he took a bass lesson from a guy named Matt Penman, a really good jazz bass player. And they were talking about slash chords during the lesson. And he had said to him, check out this album, Pet Sounds. It's a really good example of slash chords. And my friend was like, yeah, he told me to check out this Beach Boys album for slash chords. And at that time, I kind of fell into the textbook idea that people have of the Beach Boys, where I'm like, wait, the Beach Boys, that's just like surfing. That's like Surfing USA and stuff, like slash chords. And then I listened to Pet Sounds, and I was like, it was one of those moments where I was like, how have I not heard this before? Like, this is insane.
Oh, yeah.
So then from there, I kind of went down the rabbit hole. And as somebody who really likes to nerd out with music theory and study harmony and progressions and stuff like that, I mean, studying particularly the stuff that Brian wrote was just like a never ending supply of just stuff for my curious mind to keep delving into. So I pretty much just got like obsessed from that point on. And obviously my main instrument's guitar. I'm holding the guitar, but then I started doing a lot of just like arranging some of the Beach Boys songs for guitar, trying to figure out ways to translate mostly the piano parts, seeing how I can translate them over to the guitar. And yeah, I mean, I've just been a diehard fan ever since I discovered them, and I'm super happy to be doing this and super excited for this episode.
Nice.
So I was introduced to music really through my dad showing me the Beatles, and that gave me such a spark to learn how to play piano and drums and guitar, and start a band with my buddies. And so I became so into the Beatles, such a nerd with it, and eventually I heard that Paul McCartney felt that their only true competition was the Beach Boys. So that led me to go to the library and get Pet Sounds on CD. And I had an alarm clock that had like a CD player, and the speaker was like this big, super tiny. And I listened to the whole CD, and it blew me away. And so at that time, I was like just finishing like junior high and starting high school. And I was like the typical young musician. I knew like my basic triads. I knew how to strum them, but that was pretty much all I knew. I didn't really know any music theory. But when I got into the Beach Boys, it blew my mind so much that I had to figure out what it was made of. So everything I know about music theory, I learned through the Beach Boys and through learning their songs, how to play their songs by ear, and by this website that I jokingly call the Bible with my friends, because it has all their albums and all their chords.
It's got Surfer Moon.
Exactly.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
So I'd go on there and I'd be like, whoa, what's a 13 chord, or what's a major 7, or what's a slash chord? And I'd eventually figure it out through trial and error and what sounds right when I play it with the song. And so fast forward to now, I'm a producer, and that's what I do every day. Is I try to do what Brian and Spector did and record artists and make them the best they can be. And so much of that inspiration, almost all of it, comes from the boys.
That's all. Now, is your main instrument bass?
No, not at all.
Okay, whenever I see pictures of you, I always see you playing a bass. I was always wondering what your main instrument.
I know. I'm sort of like Brian, where I played piano, but I ended up playing bass somehow.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, and he's my biggest inspiration on the bass.
So your main instrument is piano?
Well, so I think I play all of these instruments mediocrely. Is that a word?
Maybe.
Well,
we can make it work.
I don't play any of them particularly well. So my main instrument is like the studio.
Mm-hmm. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit. If you're going to be doing an episode delving into Brian's chords and stuff, I'm sure you know what you're doing. I'm sure you sound great.
Yeah, I'd say my main instrument's probably piano. Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, you want to just dive right into it?
Let's do it. Let's rock
Cool.
and
So what
roll.
we're going to do, I don't know if I said this at the beginning, we each picked out 5 songs and we're just going to alternate, just do 1 song each. So by the end, we'll have 15 songs that we have nerded out on. So we're going to start out with Scott. So which song did you want to start with?
All right. I'm going to start with Don't Hurt My Little Sister from today. But before I do, can I just bring up a general concept about Brian that I think kind of permeates everything? Maybe Nate, you're kind of the expert on kind of nerdy details from their past and their story and everything, it seems. Brian, as far as we know, has really no formal training other than like accordion lessons or something like that as a little kid. Like he never really studied music theory. Is that true?
He had a basic music composition class in junior college, El Camino.
Yeah.
And that's like where he infamously turned in surfing. Yeah. So given the fact that he turned in a 12-bar blues song as his composition final, he probably wasn't paying that much attention. So it's safe to say that his education was through his parents and through listening to the radio.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm just thinking, like, my theory is that kind of the fact that he didn't have a traditional education in music theory might have freed him to kind of just be a little more creative. I don't know if that's just like a false idea or something like that, but it seems like he's not limited by the diatonic chords in a scale, you know? And he makes it sound so natural. It sounds like it's common sense, like it should be something that, oh, this is a basic change. But then when you look at it, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that was the chord change that he used.
Right.
No one would ever be able to pull that off and make it not sound weird. But just listening to it, you don't notice anything at all, that he just changed keys within a verse, you know?
Right.
So I'm thinking that's probably connected to the fact that he's an open book in terms that he wasn't educated out of that creativity, you know, which is very cool to me. And he obviously has a superior understanding of jazz forms and jazz harmony and stuff like that. And another thing that I think about all the time is there's only a handful of pop musicians that are real good writers, that they're almost not, you know, at his peak, he was not limited by his instrument, by his range. I mean, vocal range is staggering, you know? And as a melody writer, he could write in any key. He could write melodies that jump 3 octaves if he wanted and pull it off, you know? And so if you're a writer with a more limited instrument, you know, even from a orchestral perspective, if you're writing for a piece for the piccolo or something like that, you're limited by the range, you know? So I think him, Harry Nilsson, there's a couple others, McCartney for sure, that it doesn't matter what key they're playing in, and the melody, there's no obstacles to making a melody jump as high as you want, you know?
Yeah.
So I just thought, I think that kind of adds to his proficiency, you know?
And just to echo what you were saying too about the no formal training and how that kind of frees him up to do some things that might be a little bit out of the ordinary. One of the things that I love so much about Brian is a lot of the times when I'm analyzing some of these progressions, there are a lot of moments where you can kind of like codify it into like traditional harmony and be like, all right, this is in this key and he's doing this progression. But then every once in a while, there's always like this moment where there's this chord and it just makes no sense, but it sounds so good. And I'm just kind of left puzzled. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it's just incredible. And like, to me, like those moments are like, that's like what I'm always looking for in the Beach Boys. I think that's like what initially like brought me in when I was listening to Pet Sounds, like all those little moments with like these voicings and you're like, what is going on right here? But it sounds so wild. So
I know, and it's not until you break it apart. Like when you're listening to it, you almost don't notice it because it sounds, it couldn't do anything other than what he made it do. So it's not a distracting chord change when you go, wow, that's weird. You know, that came out of nowhere. But when you play it, you're like, how did he come up with this? You know, no one would ever think of this. Yeah, it's so cool.
And I'm sure we'll get into a lot of that today with certain progressions. Be like, here's one of these chords where I don't know what it is, but it sounds cool.
And just one more general thought is like, if you put him in the context of rock and roll, in 1962, you know, when they really first came on the scene. You had Elvis Presley, you had Buddy Holly, you had the Everly Brothers, you had the Ronettes and all the Spector stuff like that. And I mean, if I sang you a melody and I said, okay, come up with a harmony, 9 times out of 10, you would harmonize a third above it or something like that. You would sing above it. But Brian, as opposed to like the Everly Brothers or some other harmony groups that were considered rock and roll.
Jan and Dean,
right. Brian would put the melody at the top, and he would have all the harmonies stacked underneath that, you know? And his falsetto was just so strong that that sound was like just incredible, you know? So they were supporting his melody line at the top, and nothing was above that, you know? That I think was more jazz. I mean, that was kind of the Four Freshmen and stuff like that. That was pretty typical, but not in rock and roll. You know, if you're a Chuck Berry and you're singing "Go Johnny Go," someone's harmonizing above you and maybe even 2 parts above you. You know, and the melody's below that. So anyway, that I think is another thing
that's a great starting point, though. You know, going
that's a great point.
Stuff. That's a great way to bring it all in.
Yeah. All right. So let me dive into "Don't Hurt My Little Sister," and I start with this song. To me, it's a really underrated song. You never hear anybody talking about it, but this is kind of the first in a trilogy in my mind. I've always put these 3 songs together, and it sounds to me like Brian was working through these ideas, and then it finally all came together and culminated with "Good Vibrations," which was one of the, you know, perhaps their biggest hit of all time. You know, their greatest studio recording commercially. So anyway, I think the genesis of that was "Don't Hurt My Little Sister." If you look at the chord, so I'm just going to play the chorus. It starts out on a B flat, and so he's got "Don't hurt my little sister." It goes to the 4, so it's 1 to the 4. Then he goes down a whole step. "Don't hurt my little sister." So parallel movement. And that chord, by the way, is not in the key, the original key. If you're in B flat, A flat is not in there. But again, that's not an unusual thing really yet, because you've got, you know, you had Tequila or something like that. There were plenty of songs that went down a whole step, but then he did it again. "Don't hurt my little sister." You know, so you've got, he's taking the chorus and he's just going down by whole steps. I can't really think of other popular songs that did that, starting on the major tone. You had like "Walk, Don't Run," where it starts on the minor. And that was very, or you had "Runaway," Del Shannon, same chord progression, or "Hit the Road Jack" by Ray Charles, whatever. But I can't think of an example off the top of my head where you start B flat, go down a whole step, go down another whole step for the chorus. You know, it's
what about "Every Day"? The second section of "Every Day" by Buddy Holly. You know, it's like.
Well, no, that's just a circle of fourths.
Oh yeah, I don't know that song. So he doesn't do that in the bridge?
I don't think he does. Every way love's a little longer, every day love's a little stronger. Come what may, do you ever long for true love from me? I guess you could say that.
It doesn't have the 4th up though, like in this one, right?
Exactly, right. So yeah, Buddy Holly goes from A to D, which leads to the G, which is a full step down. Right. Oh, you're right. Yep. Yeah, that's a great example, Mike.
Oh, it is? Okay. I don't know. When you were playing that, I was hearing that in my head. So I was like, wait, is that the same progression?
Yeah. You're right. There you go. So that was a progression that was used at the time. Still not very common though.
Right.
It's not as common as the minor version of that, you know, which was ubiquitous. So you had the going down the whole steps in that, and the melody is an arpeggio on the starting on the root, you know, so he would have, that was the "Don't hurt my little sister," and he would just transpose that down. So that's Beach Boys Today, 1964. Next album, Summer Days, he does "California Girls," you know, which is just up a half step. So it's a similar key. It's in B natural now. And then, so when you go to the chorus, instead of going to the 4 there, he does the minor 2, you know, which is a related chord, just really a different bass note, but it's a little more sophisticated, a little more jazzy. So he's got down a whole step, down a whole step again, and back to the B, you know? So that's a little more sophisticated. So Don't Hurt My Little Sister, very similar to what Buddy Holly was doing. That's a great point. This brings it up a notch, I think, by having that minor second there, very jazz harmony. And the fact that he doesn't go to the 5 before he goes back to the 1, like he does in Don't Hurt My Little Sister. So he's on the G, then he's in A minor 7. That the A minor directly to the B natural. That to me is kind of a unique change there. Very cool sounding, you know?
Yeah, it's like almost like a disguised C chord. So it's like a completely chromatic descent.
Right.
Yeah,
Which that's not common, especially in rock and roll. Very sophisticated stuff. Even if you look through the Beatles stuff at the time, they did some very interesting, sophisticated chord changes too.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't think of any tune where they do something like that at the end of the chorus, you know. So very cool. So that brings it up a level. Go ahead.
And then in regard to the vocal melody too, right? Because in Don't Hurt My Little Sister, does he just do the same melody and keep moving it down a whole step? Because in this chorus, right, he doesn't do the same melody. And then I guess the last one is the same as the first.
Last one is right.
But the second one he changes up, which is cool. It's cool that he mixes the intervals in between.
Exactly. Yeah, he could have just done the same melody, just transposed down. So again, he's kicking it up a notch, but it's a similar set of chords during the chorus. And the melody on the downbeat starts on the 5th this time, not on the 1. It's
right.
You know? So instead of starting on the 1.
And also the first song he wrote after doing Acid, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know what he said? He said he sat at the piano and he played that he played it for like an hour on the piano or something.
Exactly. Yep. So very cool. And then after that, the next time that I can think of that he uses that progression of just major chord transposed down a whole step twice in a row is with Good Vibrations, where if you look at the chorus, which I guess you could say is in E flat minor, that's the typical minor that walk don't run pattern, you know? And then when you go into the chorus, now you're in F sharp or G flat, however you want to think of it, and he reverses it. So first he's on F sharp, doing the kind of Little Girl from New York City or whatever it is, you know? Up a whole step, then repeat. So this time he's coming up whole steps, which sounds exciting. It sounds like you're changing keys, you're going up towards the sky, you know, so it's the reverse of California Girls and Don't Hurt My Little Sister until you've got the gotta keep those loving good vibrations happening with her. You've got that section. And then that insane vocal chord, you know, which is, it's a slash chord. It's E flat with F in the bass to my ears. And then they come in and they do the progression that goes down whole steps, like Don't Hurt My Little Sister. So now they're in down a whole step, down another. And then they stay on it. They go up again. So to me, that concept, I can't think of many popular hit songs or even, you know, deep tracks from the 60s where that was their motif during the chorus. It's a very catchy, unique, sophisticated idea to put that as the chorus. And those 3 songs to me, just I always think that they're almost the same. And here's the pièce de résistance. So we've got Don't Hurt My Little Sister starting on the root. Then California Girls starting on the 5. Guess what the melody of Good Vibration starts on? If he's playing around with ideas, it starts on the 3. You know? So to me, it sounds like this was a feel that he had, you know, this progression of just either going up or down by whole steps, you know. And he had a great song starting on the root, great song starting on the fifth, and then another great song starting on the third, you know, degree of the scale. So that's that. And then just one more thing that I think about with those three songs. That gorgeous chord, that vocal chord that they hit at the end of the that B or C section or whatever you want to call it, that slow section of Good Vibrations. That's a chord that you would see in jazz, but also like Broadway, like theater. Like that was a very very like dramatic, almost cheesy sounding chord. You know, if I'm in the key of C and I do like, instead of doing a G to lead back to the one, I could do this. I could do I don't know if you can hear the G down there, you know? But to me, that's a very old Broadway sounding chord, you know? Very dramatic or something like that. And he used that to great effect in California Girls, you know? When you're singing the verse, the bass stays on B. So the chord's not really changing, but the harmony structure is changing to an A over a B, which I guess would make it some type of ninth or something. It's got the 7, it's got the 5, it's got the 3. Oh, no, that's the 3 of A now, I'm thinking. So it's got the C sharp. What's that, a 9 of B? Yeah, so it's like a 9, right? You've got the B in the bass. You can't play that song without having that chord in there before you go to the E, you know?
Right.
So that's the first time that I remember like that chord hitting me in the face, and then it turns out to be the same structure chord in Good Vibrations. And also, actually, hold on. First time I remember hearing that chord was Don't Worry Baby. If you listen to the intro of Don't Worry Baby, sorry, this was not one of the songs I was going to talk about, but it just popped in my head, was you've got the Carl doing the chunks.
Right.
And then you got, now listen to this.
Right.
The bass goes up to B, but he stays on that A. That's identical to the second chord in the verse of California Girls, you know? So very Brian-y thing to do that not a lot of other cats were doing at the time, you know? And that's the same chord at that part in Good Vibrations. So that's kind of my thread of those three songs.
That's awesome. One thing about California Girls too that I noticed when I was playing it on piano is if you play the do, if you play that in the left hand and you do the A major when it switches to B over A in the right hand. Another thing to me that makes that sound so cool is because the bass line is still going like that.
Yeah, you have that dissonant
7, so you're really getting like this kind of like when you
yeah.
Because you still have the A chord, but in the bass you still have the G sharp right underneath it. So just like that little half step bass chord, yeah, it's so beautiful. Right.
Yeah, that is gorgeous. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Yeah, that's great.
That's spot on though. I mean, that's a great way to kind of take, you know, the progression from the early period and show how he expanded on it. I never thought of any of this stuff that you just said. I thought that was a great.
Oh,
yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm glad that you brought up the Buddy Holly tune because I've been racking my brain, and I'm a huge Buddy fan, and I'm trying to think like when have I heard that kind of move before, where the first chord is major and they just go down whole steps 3 times, you know. And the closest I think Every Day is about right. Yeah, I think that's right. And it's basically you can think of it as a series of 2-5-1s, you know. Which if you do study jazz harmony, you know that everything in the world is 2-5-1s, you know? But it's because the 4 of whatever like if you're in B flat, if you're playing a B flat, the 4 of B flat is E flat, which is the 5 of the A flat, which leads naturally. Right. The way he spices that up is he goes to the minor second, which just sounds so much cooler, you know? So yeah, that's my thread of those 2 songs. So then the other 2 that I was going to talk about, they kind of go together in my brain also. I was kind of picking like groupings of songs that connected to one type of idea, you know? And you guys brought up, I think in either your last episode or it could be the episode before that. It might have been a couple episodes ago. You brought up This Whole World, Mike, and you actually picked up your guitar and started playing a little bit of the melody of This Whole World, you know? And I think you counted the key changes, you know? And so I do want to talk about This Whole World because it's a mind-blowing monster of a song, you know? And Nate, is this one that I think you said that you like when you audition for bands or something, you play a little bit of This Whole World?
Yeah, exactly.
No one could have come up with this other than Brian. You know, like I'm looking at my chord chart right now, and it starts. I'm not going to go through all the chords because there's a ton of chords, but it's late at night I think about the love of this whole world. So that's not too crazy. Those chords are all diatonic to the key. We're in C right now, you know, so you got C, F, E minor, G, A minor, F. Then somehow he goes from F to A major, you know, which just sounds so refreshing. And if you said to me, if you gave me the assignment, here's your homework, you have to go from the key of C to the key of A halfway through a verse.
Right.
That would be really almost impossible, and it would sound bizarre, but the way he's got the melody, it's just so perfect, you know? It makes it natural, and Brian's one of the only guys that can do that in my mind, you know? Late at night, I think about the love of this whole world. Lots of different people everywhere. So that's the second half of the verse that he puts perfectly in the key of A. So you go from C to A, then he does it again. And when I go anywhere, so now you're in C sharp. So he goes from C to A to C sharp. I see love, I see love, I see love. And now here's my favorite. This gives me chills. He goes from the F sharp. When girls get to B flat.
That's my favorite part.
Oh my God, that's my favorite part. It gives me chills when I hear that. It's almost not supposed to happen. That's the is that the sharp 5?
You know what that also is?
Yeah. Oh, can I tell you first, Nate? I think I know what it is. No, go ahead. You tell me. You steal my thunder. I think I know what it is, though.
We forever thinking the same thing.
She knows me too well?
Well, no.
Okay.
Yeah, that. But it's the little old lady from Pasadena. F sharp to B flat.
Nice. No, I wasn't thinking that at all. So there it is right there. It's a very bizarre change, you know? And just
California Girls, right? The end of California Girls is G. Oh wait, no, wait. Well, it's G to B, so it's the same thing, but a half step higher, right? Wish they all could be California girls, right? The flat 6 to the 1.
That's true. Yeah,
I guess exactly. That one had, but it has the A minor in between, like you were saying, so it's a little different.
Right. Which I can't tell which one I like better, but I was thinking it's she knows me.
Right.
Yeah.
That same relationship there. But just so cool. So now he's in B flat. When girls get mad at boys and go, many times they just put on a show. When they leave you laid alone. And now almost a false key change. We're back in C, you know?
Right.
Brilliant. C to A to C sharp to B flat, back to C.
It's like when he gets to that F, when he gets to the F chord, it's like, because he's in B flat, so it's really the 5 chord, but it seems like he's treating it now as the 4 chord, and then moves up to G, and now it's the 5. So finding these chords that are the same in different keys, like some overlapping chords where you can kind of combine them and mix and match them to go in and out of keys. But
and he's a master. He's a master at just slipping key changes in there that you never noticed until I started playing guitar. I didn't realize there was a key change halfway through the verse of Dance, Dance, Dance. I just knew I got more excited when I heard that verse, you know, but I didn't realize that he's changing keys halfway through the verse, you know? And the key changing I get around, you could kind of argue is kind of hidden, and or just he does it so seamlessly that it sounds like that's the only way that song could have been written. And when you break it down, like it's just staggering how incredible the ingenuity is, you know, to come up with that. So he's got that right. You're on the F, he goes up to G, but that brings you back to the original key. So every time he does that, you feel like you're going up a whole step, even though you're really just returning back to the original key, you know? That's another, I think he does that in Hang On to Your Ego, or I Know There's an Answer. He's in B flat, but then he somehow gets you into the key of A flat. And so when he goes back to B flat, it feels like you're going up a key, even though you're just going back to the original key, you know? So he has these ways of modulating down within the middle of a song so that he could go back up without actually making the key any higher, you know? And he does that. I think he does that kind of thing more often than he does the traditional just going up a half step like he does in We're Together Again, or even I Get Around is kind of a little more traditional of a key change, or Dance, 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 those hidden key changes are just crazy to me.
One of my favorite examples of the half step movement is the ending of When I Grow Up to Be a Man, where it's like where they go up a half step for the
Oh my God.
Because that song is already so wild as it is, those vocal harmonies, and then they just all of a sudden they just slip this one part up a half step, and I like thinking about how long it must have taken to get comfortable with that, because those voicings are so wild, and then all of a sudden just transposing it up, that's got to be ridiculous.
And then, am I right in saying that they end on that key? They modulate right then and stay on that key, right? They don't go back, right?
Right, it ends in, I think it ends in B flat, right? In B flat. It starts in A flat. So maybe they actually modulate up a whole step, not a half step. I always thought it was a half step, but
might be a whole step.
Yeah, that's wild.
And then they stay on that just for the outro. Like 90% of the song is in A flat.
Right.
Just the outro is in B flat.
And they have those. They're like saying the ages, like 22.
Yeah.
23. I never noticed that until I really listened. I was like, oh, they're counting. That's fun.
Just so good, just so great. And I just thought of one other part where just before I get off of this whole world, when girls going from that, I think he called it a flat 6 or sharp 5, whatever it is, into the next key. The other song that just popped into my head where he does that is another really underrated song, I think. One by one, the stars disappear, the sky grows brighter every minute of the sunrise. There it is. He goes from E.
Oh.
Goes from the verse is in E, and then just wake the world. Right? Oh no, is that right though?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Is that the same change though? I don't know if that's going from E to G sharp. So how is E related to G sharp? Oh no, it is the sharp 5. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the same change there. Yeah, so cool. Awesome. Yeah, the verse is in E, and then he slides up to G sharp for the chorus. Yeah, just incredible. All right, so I wanted to connect this whole world, the 4 key changes within one verse, which is like insane for a pop song. I wanted to kind of compare that to That's Why God Made the Radio, or That's Why the Lord Made the Walkie-Talkie, or whatever. I think it's a cringeworthy title. It just reeks of Mike Love to me, just commercial, but it's like, people love God Only Knows now. I better talk about how God made the radio,
Very funny album title to use in like 2012 too.
Wait, say it again? Oh,
very funny album title for 2012 too. It's not like the radio is like the main source of people's, listening.
Exactly. That's why Jesus made the 8-track, would be the B-side, I think. So besides the title, it's actually a really great song. When that album came out in 2012, That's Why God Made the Radio, I just thought it was just such a great album, and you guys were talking about Brian's solo career last time, and I think you only covered basically half of it, but I know we don't want to go off on too many tangents, but
go for it. Why not?
But the production on the Joe Thomas stuff just always kind of bothers me a little bit. Like I said, like we were talking before we started the episode, it's a little too polished. I mean, Brian's known for being a genius producer, but even in Pet Sounds, you've got Carl talking about camera lenses or something like under an instrumental break. So the Beach Boys sound was always very sophisticated, very clean, and but not overproduced and not over polished, and then when Brian started working with Joe Thomas, I think his sound just was overproduced and like really almost trying too hard to be of the time and commercial or something like that. And it doesn't sound organically Brian to me. And when they came out with Lucky Old Son and Brian presents Smile, to me that stuff just sounded more authentically Brian or organically Brian or something.
I agree.
Yeah, especially Lucky Old Son, where he was working with Scott Bennett, who went through all kinds of troubles. He's not really on the scene anymore. But that to me was like closest to a masterpiece Brian album. Besides his '88 album, and I happen to love the stuff that he did with Andy Paley, the unreleased '90s stuff. And even Orange Crate Art. I've been listening to that because they re-released it on Omnivore, and it really is a killer record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love
But
it.
anyway, I'm trying to say that the Joe Thomas stuff was not that exciting to me, and then that's why God Made the Radio came back, and it's got all the Beach Boys voices, and Al sounds insanely good, and even Bruce sounds really good, and the songs to me just sound like fun, energetic, and the title track, it sounds like it's got a lot of similarities in chord structure to This Whole World. That was the closest piece that came to my mind when I heard it. It's a different tempo. It's even like, I think it's in 6/8, and This Whole World is just a rocking 4/4. So it's a different feel to it, but it's got a lot of the same chord structures that I'll talk about. But I wonder what your guys' thoughts are on, his more recent compositions, the past, 15 years. Who's really writing that stuff? I have my doubts. I'm sure Brian has a hand. But I'm just I always wonder, like, did he really write this, or is this somebody else that influenced him, or whatever? What are you guys' thoughts? Do we want to get into this or no?
Sure. I think in particular of the last 15 years, I'd say my opinion is that probably 80% of it musically he wrote, if it wasn't like a cover, obviously. And of course the lyrics are almost always handled by someone else, as has always been the case with Brian. I think in the last, like in the That's Why God Made the Radio, No Peer Pressure, like that era, where he's in his 70s. Joe Thomas did an interview where he said that, like, when they write together, it's more often than not like Brian playing chords and then Joe Thomas suggesting melodies. But he said, like, as time goes on, sometimes he suggests like chord changes, and Brian then like manipulates the changes that Joe Thomas writes. So I think it's definitely collaborative. I think it's definitely Joe Thomas pulling a lot of weight too, but I think it's no different than Brian writing with Mike or any of his previous writers, that there's still the Brian stamp on it. No Peer Pressure gets a little different because, like, I think the concept was to have Brian work with like some different writers and it to be an inherently collaborative thing. So I know, like, with Guess You Had to Be There with Casey Musgraves, she started it, and then Brian and Joe Thomas finished it. I think you can really hear that the verses are Casey Musgraves, because it's pretty standard stuff going on. But then when that chorus kicks in, it's pure Brian. I think it's probably just given to the fact that he's older now. It takes a lot of effort and energy, not maybe more energy is the better word, to write songs and all that. So, and why wouldn't you work with collaborators if you had the big label budget? I think
Absolutely.
a big thing also, not to keep going on and on about this, but is that during the Imagination sessions, Brian and Joe Thomas were like writing like ferociously, like hundreds of songs, and due to the legal incidents that took place afterwards, where they were suing each other and they were kind of feuding for a little while. Joe Thomas got basically the rights to all the songs that they wrote together, and for Brian to release those songs, they have some type of agreement where they have to collaborate on them, and that's why. So, and most of the That's Why God Made the Radio and No Peer Pressure songs that aren't like, we're getting back together again, it's the anniversary. If it's not that, or like, I'm old now, like, this is my last song, most of that stuff comes from the imagination sessions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Including Runaway Dancer, which everyone thinks Brian didn't write. But that started as a completely different song in the 90s.
Wow.
And then Cebu, however you say his name,
So
I think, wrote like probably new words, and he did the electronic programming sounds over the track.
oh, very cool. All right.
I don't think Brian was sitting there with a drum machine.
No, probably not. Well, he could. He could do
I know.
anything.
Wouldn't that be something?
I would buy it.
I'll buy anything.
It would be
Brian
cool
does.
if they like gave Brian a rundown on Ableton or FL Studio and like sequencing.
Yeah.
And he made an album in the completely modern way. I'm sure he could do it.
Brian Wilson with 808 bass.
Oh my God, I love it.
All right. So I guess I sometimes have my doubts because there's interviews with Brian within the last 15 years where he's like, I haven't written a song in 20 years, Not that we can always believe what Brian says, but you hear that and you're like, oh, well then who is, or whatever. But it could be just that he's got remnants of songs that he's reusing those songs and repurposing them and whatever. But a lot of the tunes I do think have the Brian stamp on them. Like That's Why God Made the Radio. Those chord changes just are so good,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me. There's just certain moments where I'm just like, this is so Brian.
Like that's Brian. Yeah.
Like another example I could think of, I don't remember exactly how to play it. I wanted to do it for this episode, but I didn't have time to figure it out. But there's like a little part on Forever She'll Be My Surfer Girl in between the verse and the chorus where it's like, oh, my amp's off. Hang on.
It's the do.
Yeah, that little weird. There's like it's like.
Yeah. Oh.
Like, I don't know exactly, but the bass.
You just killed it.
And the right hand is. And I'm just like, who else would write that? That's just so.
It's almost like the.
Heroes and Villains.
Heroes and Villains, yeah, where you got the descending part and the ascending part, and there's a lot of chromaticism in there,
Right.
I love on that Forever She'll Be My Surfer Girl how it's arranged too. I think it's like vibes and marimba going up and like the bass going down.
Yeah.
That's such a great song. Such a beautiful song.
It really is. So
that
good.
One moment you're just like, oh, nice. Little Brian, another like just little weird Brian chord moment. I love it. Comes
I feel like
out of nowhere. You have like this beautiful, like heartfelt song, and then all of a sudden, kind of reminds me of like God Only Knows when it just randomly goes into do da do dee da bit da 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 da.
Right.
I think there's so much to find and dig in. Literally from the first 19, Surf and Safari, all the way through their last album, all the solo albums, you can always find these weird moments that no other group or guys could come up with. Even Dennis and Bruce and their respective stuff.
Oh yeah.
I live for those moments.
Me too. All right, I'll just wrap up my part since I've been kind of taking up a bunch of time, but just to play through quickly, This Whole World was in C. That's Why God Made the Radio. Same key. Tune in the latest song. Forgive my singing. And now, second line of the first verse. Now you're in A, just like This Whole World. That's the identical change. So just so cool. From the dashboard of my car. Say that again.
I never made the connection between these two songs.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I knew the chords, but I never realized it's the same key change.
Same key change, and then you have just an A minor to D, 2 to 5.
Seven.
Push button heaven. So now you're basically in G, I guess, if you think of that as a 2-5, and then da 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 da. So good.
So good.
Now you're back in C.
Oh my God. I never knew the chords for this one, so it's like uncovering an archaeological site to see you play this.
So good.
Exactly. It's so cool because, so when I learned the chords, that's really when I put it together. I go, he goes from C, and then he's in from the dashboard of my car. And when you're listening to it, you wouldn't even hear a key change.
Really?
The melody is just sound. The melody sounds simple, Tuning in the latest star from the dashboard of my car. It's really just one note difference, you know? He starts that second part on a C sharp from instead of the C, but you barely notice it, you know? So, da, 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 da. Cruising at 7. This is pretty typical. Da, 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 da. In my car. Now you're in
B flat going to G, right? It's B flat to G. That's an interesting movement.
G. That's pretty killer.
And then the vocal stuff underneath it. So beautiful.
Yeah, Mike's bass part is so good.
So cool, but it's just like it sounds like something off of Sunflower to me, you know, just
Totally.
Just so dreamy, you know, just really good. And then you have the That's Why God, and then they go to a G minor as the second chord of the chorus. So you're in C.
Minor.
Right, and typically if you see that, you're assuming it's going to go to F major.
That's right,
but it doesn't.
Doesn't, exactly. That's the thing, is you assume that it's going to F major because this is almost like a 9 chord, you know, having the G minor 7 in the context of a C. And so it should lead to that F to resolve. But instead, let me think of what he does. He goes up to, what is this, E flat. Goes up to E flat. Why
so that's just like a one note difference.
It goes middle, it goes E flat and then major 7 and then dominant 7. Tune right in every way.
And the same thing in D flat.
Right, and then it goes does like the
just almost like whole tone, like it sounds like we're having a dream, you know. So just cool, and then the same thing. Give us rock and roll. So there's up behind the again. That's just so cool. Now you're just on F sharp. And now you're back in C. Which to me, those chords there, when you go to that E flat, you know, to the, you're in, I don't know what key you're in. It's ambiguous.
Yeah.
It's just a series of chords, and then you're in D minor, C, F, G to lead back to the C, you know, but it almost comes out of nowhere. It's almost not, there's 3 or 4 chords in a row that are not really related to each other. It's just like a magic trick of how he went.
And then when it leads to that G flat to B part, so if you look at that in relation to where the chorus starts, it starts on C major, and then it goes through all these different chords, and then it lands on like G flat to B for a while, and then it goes to D minor to set it back up to go to C. It's just like, it's another one of those examples of what we're talking about, where like, I don't know what's going on, but it sounds insane. You know?
Exactly. You know, and Brian's got other songs where you could take a snapshot of the chord structure, or you could take the entire song and we could argue about what key it's in.
Oh, yeah.
God only knows, and it has a history of, some people think it's in E, some people think it's in A, and I don't think there's universal agreement on it, you know?
Yeah.
That's great. That's insane. I personally think it's in A, which I think is not
I'm the opposite.
Opinion.
I always thought of it as like
what do you think?
Like a D, because you have G natural in there.
You know what the whole thing is? You know what the problem is? If the first chord wasn't A over D, like there wouldn't be, I don't think there'd be like a lot of disagreement. It's that first chord when the singer.
Wait, isn't it D over A?
D over A, yeah.
D over A, or did I say A over D? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The reason why I've always thought it was E was I just base it off of that ending vamp when it just does A, then E over G sharp, F sharp minor. Like, I think when you listen to the ending, God only knows what I'd be without you. To me, that has like a very clear, like descending progression in E major, starting on the 4 chord, you know?
I see what you mean.
Yeah, but I think the other reason people think traditionally it's in E is because of the French horn line.
Right,
note.
Major 7, right.
It's the major 7 of E, right. Meanwhile, that's the flat 5 of A. Why, that should sound like a dissonant note, but it doesn't sound dissonant, so that makes you think that it's in the key of E. But to me, whenever I've played that song, God only knows what I'd be without you, I've always ended on A. And to me, it sounds resolved. But to other people, it might sound like a choice to end it on the 4. But to me, it sounds like it resolves. And it could just be that I've ended on A for so long that I'm so used to it. But it makes me feel like it's an A.
That's how.
How would you end it?
And then I go like this. I've always just done that. I heard him do that live one time. I was like, that's so.
Cool.
He did it at the end of. I think he did it at the end of Heroes and
Love
Villains.
and Mercy. Oh.
Or maybe, I'm sorry. No, Love and Mercy, he goes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but I love that, just when he takes any of those little melody ideas and quotes them at the end of another song. But I normally, if I'm just going to do a regular, and I go. Or sometimes I go. I'm sorry. Or something like that. Kind of like hinted at.
I know, so it almost sounds great. It almost sounds great if you end on an E. It sounds resolved. If you end on an A, it sounds resolved to me, to my ears. It could just be.
Yeah, the A sounded fine when you just did it. I've never ended on an A, but it doesn't sound like it needs to go anywhere.
Yeah, that's how they finish it live, is on the A.
On the A, yeah. So here we are having a debate about what key it's in. Like, how many other popular songs do you not know what key it's in? And just to say one more thing, I feel like I'm monopolizing the whole session, but
we got plenty of time. Don't worry.
All right, another song that to me I think of as ambiguous for a good amount of time is to bring it back to one of my all-time favorites that we brought up a second ago was She Knows Me. She knows me. And I always expect her to know what I'm thinking of. He hasn't played the root yet. This song is in B. I just went through the whole first part of the verse without playing a B, And then it's but she knows me. And now we're in B. That's the first time he plays a B, natural. Which to me, that's the coolest thing. Like you literally don't know what key you're in. Or you don't hear the root chord until you go to the chorus. And then it has such a solid, grounded sound at that point after all of the what would you call it? Vulnerability, which it's so Brian to not have a home or a root or something until you get to that. But she knows me. It's so comforting, and it makes me think about it's so Brian to have that vulnerability built into his chord structures. And if you think about this blew my mind the first time I heard it. I don't remember where I heard it, but Don't Worry Baby. He's not as a man in the 1960s, 1964, he's not saying to his woman, "Don't worry, baby." The song is about her telling him not to worry. When she says, "Don't worry, baby," it completely changes the meaning of the song when you think of it that way, A typical rock song in the 1960s would have been, "Don't worry, baby, everything will be all right." But he's singing from the perspective of when she tells me that not to worry, To me, that's like classic Brian, and why so many people relate to him, I think.
Yeah.
The introspective, sensitive part of him that just had to come out, I think that's just so cool that someone in 1964 was writing from that perspective,
Yeah, not afraid to show his vulnerabilities.
Exactly. Where I don't know if the Rolling Stones or the Beatles were at that point at that time, you know what I mean? Not to throw anybody, not to minimize anybody, but that was kind of Brian's, the genesis of of really music having an emotion that's deeper than just how come brown sugar tastes so good,
Yeah.
So anyway,
real quick on the subject. Just real quick on the subject of She Knows Me Too Well, too. By the way, some of my all-time favorite background vocals in the chorus of that song. So much amazing stuff going on with Mike Love doing the She Knows Me Too Well. There's like 3 different things. There's that, and there's She Knows Me Too Well. And then there's the lead part, Knows Me So Well. Like all 3 of those things together, they have these certain songs where just those background harmonies, when you listen to them on their own, there's so much stuff going on. The vocals are an instrument just within themselves. I mean, even with a song like I Get Around is another great example of that.
Oh, yeah.
Or like I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. Like any of these songs, they have these enormous, rich vocal harmonies where I can't think of any other group in the 60s, at least from a rock perspective, that was doing anything even close to that in terms of their harmonies, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. Not as dense of a like the other vocal groups that were around in the 60s, the Association or something like that. There were some great killer vocal groups, but I think they were a little bit more square or more in the box, more traditional. But you listen to a song like that, or you listen to Let 'Em Run Wild, or there's so many early examples of that.
A Young Man Is
vocal,
Gone.
Vocal gymnastics, yeah, exactly. Where it's like these are Carl Wilson is maybe 14 years old or something, and just what they were able to do was really deceptively complex. It sounded simple, but then you break it down and you go, what group of teenagers, are able to do this? And they learn it on the spot. It's not like they've had 30 years to listen to this music. They're doing it in short order. Brian's going, here's your part, here's your part, here's your part, here's your part. Okay, let's make it.
And recording it, and then going out on the road and singing and playing your instruments at the same time.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
And I gotta get
inspiring.
The longer that I'm a Beach Boys fan, the more Al arises in my mind as like this incredible vocal genius. He doesn't have the songwriting genius or even instrumentally. He holds his own, but he's not a virtuosic guitar player or something. But his voice just adds so much to that blend. If you listen to the part he's singing on She Knows Me Too Well. And many songs, he's singing tenor too, and he's got the hardest parts. And there's songs that I don't even realize that he's actually the one singing the high falsetto part. It's not Brian. And I'm always like, damn, there he is again.
Really? Like which ones?
Be Here in the Morning. Everything on the concert.
Wait, he's singing like the
lead.
That's Al?
That's Al.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That sounds
Al.
great. I always thought that was Carl.
Another one is All Dressed Up for School. It's how does the chorus of that go?
Let's get dressed up.
No, it's Look So Fine, what a turn on. That's Al. You know, it's
just sounded like Brian there. That was good. You almost sounded like
that was
Brian
fucking
there.
crazy.
Oh, thanks.
Dude, what the hell? That blew me. Damn, that was good.
Oh,
yeah, that sounded like Brian.
That did.
I try.
No
one can sing like Brian, but Al actually tricks you into. And the first time I heard "I Know There's an Answer," I thought it's Brian all the way singing the, I know so many people who think they can do it alone. They isolate their heads and stay in their safety zone. That's Al. That's not Brian.
Yeah. Or Al, good Al falsetto are pretty much all the falsetto on the 1973 concert album, and most of the falsetto on the Nebworth live album too.
Oh yeah, and the 72 concert, that's actually my favorite live album. I know everybody loves Live in London, but I'm a diehard 72 concert fan. I just
Me
think
too.
The songs
that would be my Desert Island Beach Boy album.
Me too. Their groove is just so good. Al singing "Don't Worry Baby," it's no Brian, but it's
so good.
It's so good. It's a different interpretation, and then you have Carl on the choruses. Yeah. That's like one of my favorite things ever, is hearing Al sing the verses of "Don't Worry Baby."
That's my favorite version of the song.
I love that version, And when they brought in Bruce, I always, with my brother, my brother's a big Beach Boys fan because of me, I think, my younger brother. We always get around and we put Bruce down, and we shouldn't. He's a brilliant songwriter, but we were always making fun of Bruce. And it's like, hey, Bruce, you know anyone that could fill in for Brian? Yeah, I'll ask everybody I know. Oh, I'll join the Beach Boys. Like it just seems kind of strange to me. And then, I mean, he's a brilliant singer, but he doesn't even replace Brian. Al ends up stepping up and singing all of Brian's parts. I'm like, so what are you doing, Bruce?
It's a weird mix. Yeah.
It's bizarre. Yeah, I guess his voice, which he even on record has hit some higher notes than even Brian, you know, and he does add a lot to their 1970s sound. I love the sound of Bruce's voice. I love his songwriting. I really do. So I'm a champion of all the guys, you know.
Me too.
But that always struck me as funny, as like, oh, Bruce is replacing Brian, but he's not actually singing Brian's parts.
Yeah.
Right.
Really Al, and it's like Al is like a Swiss Army knife, you know, like he can cover basically any part, you know, and even
That's a great
as he's gotten older, when he does the Family and Friends album, he's singing all of Mike's parts. He's singing a lot of the bass parts, and he sounds killer, you know. So
and he instrumentally, guitar, bass, banjo, uke, string bass, whatever you throw at him.
String upright bass,
Yeah, I feel like Al is kind of the unsung hero a lot of times because everyone focuses so much on the brothers, and then some people like to hate on Mike, and then Al is kind of just like on the sidelines. I feel like Al is kind of like the probably the most consistent
weapon.
one. Yeah.
He's the secret sauce. I really think he is.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree that
without him, you don't have the Beach Boys.
Honestly, I think like him and Bruce are definitely unsung heroes with their respective groups that they play in now. I think if you took, because there are videos and recordings, obviously, the Brian band minus Al and the Mike band minus Bruce both sound much, much less like the Beach Boys than when Bruce and Al are there. Then all of a sudden, both groups, you'd swear you're listening to the record.
I know. So when you go see the Mike band, the Mike and Bruce band, what I always think is like, why don't they showcase Bruce more? Give him a whole set.
Yeah,
like you've got Bruce Johnston in your band. It's insane that you're not using him to his full, you know, potential. Like, I would go to see a Bruce Johnston concert, you know?
Right.
I know. I really hope that before, you know, I really hope that at some point he either does a book or a movie or a tour or something where he can sort of be in the limelight and show off all these songs he's written for the Beach Boys and other artists and talk about his production. And, you know, sort of like how Al's doing his storytelling thing.
Yeah.
Imagine Bruce doing that with just like a piano.
I'd be there.
That would be so cool.
And he's a gifted piano player. He really is talented. There's YouTube videos of him doing Disney Girls, just him and a piano, and he's kind of stretching out a little bit. And have you seen that video that I'm talking about?
No.
Yeah, it's from 75. Yeah.
All right, Mike, you got to check it out because it's him. Yeah. He's playing with the tempo. He's adding in little riffs and stuff like that, and it really just showcases like, wow, this guy's insane.
He's playing Disney Girls, you said?
He's playing Disney.
Yeah.
Well, I would love that.
He's like a straight up classical pianist, and he only shows it off once in a while. But when he does, you're like, whoa.
Or like there was a period in the 70s where he played your song and he played like a little help with my friends, or what is it? A little help from my friends, you know? Like just covering other groups' stuff. And he really does such an awesome job on it. You know, it sounds so good.
That's awesome. One thing to echo what you were saying about how you wish they'd play more of Bruce's songs live. It's interesting because I feel like for diehard fans like us, like you could just play like any song that Bruce wrote and we're going to love it. But one thing that I've noticed when I've seen the Beach Boys live is I feel like they kind of have to maintain this delicate balance of playing like the fan favorites and then throwing in some of the deep cuts, because I always assume that everybody that goes there is like a diehard fan that knows all the stuff that we do. But like I had like this kind of revealing moment where the past couple times I've seen Brian, he would always throw in like one really nice deep cut. And the first time he did Let 'Em Run Wild. And when I heard the opening line, I was like, yeah, like I screamed, yeah. And like nobody else like even chanted. And I was like, wait, what? Nobody's excited about this? And then the second time they played The Night Was So Young, and same thing, like nobody like even like reacted. So like, I feel like that's probably something that they're trying to always kind of work around, you know, because like for people like us, I feel like if you just did every Bruce Johnston song at a Mike Love show, like we would love it. But I don't know like how the fans are going to react. A lot of people just want to hear like, you know, fun and stuff like that, you know.
Which Bruce, I think to this day, does the
outro
and the fun, which is
you were saying that, Nate.
Yeah, awesome. It's a highlight, you know, of the show. I totally agree. Yeah. All right, so I'm done with my 5 songs.
That's your 5. All right. Let me just use the bathroom and refill my water bottle, and then I will get into my 5. All right.
All right, sounds cool.
Yeah, I'll do the same.
All right, so the first one that I'm going to do is I Went to Sleep And this is just an example of one where the first time I heard it, it just completely freaked me out in terms of like the coolness of the chord progression. It has a lot of interesting slash chords. It's just kind of one of those songs that's really like all over the place. And stylistically, I think it's really cool. It has like a very chill vibe, and I love the instrumentation. And I actually wrote a chord chart for this one so we could follow along. So it's in the key of A major, and the intro goes. So we start on the 1 chord, and then he plays the 5 chord, but instead of doing it as a dominant, he actually does minor 7, which is cool. Right, so instead of going, right, that's like the generic, he's going. Really cool sound. Now, the first 4 chords really cool when we get to the melody. So we have A major, F sharp dominant 9, which is cool. So the melody is A, F sharp 9, B minor, and then F sharp dominant. So it's really interesting because it starts on the 1 chord, and then it does like F sharp 9, which you can think of that as like it's like the 6th dominant, which leads to B minor. Then it goes back to the 6th. Now right here is really wild. We get these really interesting slash chords.
Yeah, look at those.
So it starts with D over A. And then it's interesting because it's just the exact reverse. Then it's A over D. So I thought that was really cool. I was wondering if that was deliberate. Like if you just said, hey, I'm just going to take the chord and just reverse the bass note and the chord. But
you got to be a good writer to pull off A over D and D over G with those dissonant notes.
Yeah, and then A over D, also the first chord of God Only Knows. Right? So, and then this. And then. So the thing that's interesting here is that now it kind of, to me, sounds like it's more in the key of D major, especially when we have that thing at the end, that D over G to D major. Sorry. And to me, that kind of sounds like a 4-1 in D major, like, you know. So to me, it seems like he's starting out in A major, right? Now it's kind of like G major. I'm sorry, D major. Because if you look at those first 2 chords, they both kind of have like a D major 9 kind of sound, like 4. I don't know. So I was trying to figure out how to analyze that 4 bars right there. That's kind of like my favorite part of the entire progression, and to me, that's kind of what it seems like. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
We're speechless. I was, you know what I was going to say? I didn't know if Nate was going to go first, but my only thought about that is, I don't know if I have a response to your question as of like, is it really shifting from A to D? My thought is if you look at the slash chords, I think this is true of songs like God Only Knows also, that where they have several slash chords in a row. It's almost as if the bass is a measure behind the chordal instrument.
Yeah, or
you know? And it's almost like they're catching up. So you're doing D/A, and then the chord changes to A, but it's almost like the bass is behind, you know?
Yeah.
I just think that's interesting, and I think that's a Brian thing. I think that's something that he does. If you analyze the verse of God Only Knows,
crazy.
He's behind by measure.
That's the case. Every single slash chord here is like if you look at the chord of the next
exactly
chord, every single one, D, 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 and even here, D, D. That's crazy.
Exactly.
I feel like he utilizes the bass to like show you where we're gonna go without maybe changing like the harmonic structure too much. Like how we were talking about in Don't Worry Baby, how in the intro it has that 9 in the bass. Oops. But if you're not changing those notes that all the singers are singing, but it's sort of cluing your brain into what lies ahead.
Right.
The bass does, yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And then the way, sorry, go ahead.
I also feel like I was gonna get to this at some point or another. I feel like so much of what makes Brian's music unique is most composers, I assume, think of chords in a key and go from there. Uh, but Brian, it's so like as we're looking at right now, like not diatonic,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it's more like the emotion comes from the movement. I think of like each two chords as like a new like movement idea that he's presenting, and the movements are like catchy, and it's you, it makes you remember the song.
And it's almost, but it also makes it really hard. I mean, do you guys remember like trying to figure this stuff out by ear and just being, I've been so frustrated trying to pick some of this stuff out by ear and like what, I could not, I would get stuck after the second chord, you know? And I'm a pretty decent ear, but the stuff he does is deceptively complex. It sounds simple. I'm like, what chord is that? Oh, I know, it's not one of the chords that's in the key that I thought he was in, you know?
There have been times where I'm transcribing like a chord and I'm trying to figure out the bass note, and I have to like put the speed on YouTube at like 50%, and I'm just like putting my ear up against the headphone just trying to figure out what this note is. And then eventually I get it, but it's just like there's all this trial and error that comes into learning a lot of songs like this.
And it's cool because that's how he learned how to write songs, by doing that with Freshman and Spectre and Janet Dean.
And the thing that I like too is like a lot of these songs, like they're very clearly in a key, but then there might be like a bar, like a set of 4 or 8 bars where it just kind of veers off into like this weird territory, and it's not exactly clear like what it is, which is kind of like I think like what you were saying, Nate, about like every like having like a couple of chords that's like its own individual movement. Because like when we get to this ending part too, so here I'll do it from the measure 5. So. Repeat the D over G thing. Now right here, it's very clearly like it's just like a 3 6 2 5 back to A. So like at the end there, you can hear it. 5, and then it sets it back up to go to that A major again. But like this 4 measures in between, it kind of, or really the 6 measures, kind of just takes like this little detour into this really interesting area. Just like a perfect example to me of like one of those just Brian Wilson moments where I'm just like, I don't know what is going on here, but this sounds so beautiful, you know?
Yeah. Can we just comment on for a second how Brian these lyrics are? I think he wrote the lyrics for this one. But it's still my favorite lyrics, just about the sprinkler going off and the gardener walking by. Oh my God, it's like,
it completely fits the vibe.
It fits the vibe of the song perfectly, you know. And there's even snoring going on in the recording. I think, you know.
It's just like it's such a sleepy vibe.
Yeah.
I think Brian had a very good instinct, literally from when the Beach Boys started until today, of when to bring in. I mean, there were some missteps like "Hey Little Tomboy," but for the most part, of when to bring in a lyrical collaborator and when like he knew he could do it for like the mood he was trying to create, like this or Still I Dream of It or Surfer Girl.
Till I Die.
Or, like Till I Die. Perfect, like very Brian things. But then they're like, you know, God Only Knows or Please Let Me Wonder, Surfing USA, whatever. He had the instinct to bring in like people who were the best at what they did to get how he was feeling across. Or sometimes I wonder if you know, Roger Christian or Mike Love or Jack Riley or any of Brian's co-writers were like, hey Brian, I'm feeling this type of way. And that's how it started versus everyone's assumption that it was like Brian feeling, you know, some type of way and then the lyricist providing, you know.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible. So many mysteries surrounding Brian.
I know. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think he comes across to me as a very spontaneous person, especially in the 60s, that if you said, oh, Brian, I'm kind of feeling blah, 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 or something, he would just go, oh, and he would create that mood musically.
Yeah.
He would just go, oh, here's how that sounds, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Even like, like there are so many Beach Boy moments where like what's going on lyrically is reflected musically in like the changes or in the arrangement.
Yeah, absolutely. So here, the next one I'm going to do, I think this is going to be very similar to I Went to Sleep in terms of just the slash chords and kind of just the interesting territory that it gets into throughout the song. So the next one I'm going to do is Solar System. Always loved this
Oh
song. Yeah, and especially the progression. I mean, it just always really caught my ear. It's kind of it's there's definitely a couple changes. It's kind of all over the place, similar to This Whole World. Probably not as many key changes as This Whole World, but a lot of cool stuff going on. So I'll play it first, and then we'll discuss it. Oh, and there it goes on. There's that little fill at the end to get back to it. But I mean, that's just all over the place. So to me, when I'm looking at this, the only really clear key center that I see at one point, it kind of seems like it leads to A flat major. You have like there's a 2-5-1 where you have the B flat minor, E flat to A, and then it's like I would think of that as like the 1, then it goes to the 2, back to the 1, and then the 2, and then it looks like we do a modulation up a half step to A major, but he starts on the 5 chord, but with the B in the bass, and then he makes it dominant. Then the 1, 2, and then the chorus. You think it might be A major, but then it kind of throws you off when it has B major 7, because the first you could think of the first 2 chords as 1-6, but then it almost seems like he does 1-6 a whole step higher. That's kind of I just think like it's the same progression, but a key higher. And then after this G sharp minor, he goes to C sharp 7, and then it leads back to the top, which is G flat over D flat. So like it looks like the ending going back to the top, you could think of that as like it's the 5 chord, right? The C sharp 7 is the 5 of G flat. Then I don't know, that beginning is kind of weird to me, seeing how that lands into A flat major, because you have G flat major, you have A flat dominant, and then B flat minor. So just those 2 chords leading into B flat minor is really interesting. Particularly having the 7 on the A flat, because I feel like normally you hear, that's a little bit more common. I think we talked about that with Scott's first example with those descending minor and then 2 major chords, right? But this is dominant, but yeah, I don't know. I always thought this was super neat.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to like the movement idea, like that there really is no like established key, yet you can sing the whole song, and when you're listening to it, it doesn't sound that jarring. Because there are all these little.
I was just gonna say, if you look at those bass notes from the beginning, right? It's kind of like going right down to A flat major scale. But then like the actual chords above it, it's almost like he's coming up with a note, and then he's putting different chords on top that are kind of unrelated in a way, maybe.
And somehow pulls it all off.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think that's what he's doing, because the measures 5 through 12. Those are the only 2 parts of the song where you really feel centered and grounded in a key, where he's just going back and forth between those 2. Right. I think you're exactly right, but then it's brilliant how he leads back into, just modulating up a half step and not staying there, but actually going back down to the original key. That's his brilliance. The turnaround leads you right back into the original key.
And it's using that movement that we had talked about in California Girls from Measure 5, where you're doing the 1 chord and then the 2 minor, right? And then in this case, he's moving it up a half step. In California Girls, he moves down a whole step.
Down a
So
whole
you
step.
can see the example of that chord movement being utilized now in a chromatic way, as opposed to going down a whole step. So it's interesting. This could almost be like a further evolution of the progression we were talking about from the beginning.
Yeah.
Good vibrations leads into solar system, the ultimate. Now,
Yeah.
just looking at these, just real quick, what this reminds me of, it's not in the same key, I don't think, but Don't Back Down does a similar thing to bring it to a really early one that I love, where he goes up a half step and then right before starting the next verse goes back down into the original key, modulates down a half step, you know? That's
and it is also A flat to A.
A flat to A, right. Oh, A flat to A, yeah.
That's awesome. I know that song. I didn't realize that there was crazy stuff going on in the chords of that song. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Don't Back Down is one of those undiscovered gems. You know, I love all the early surf stuff because that's how I got into them, and that was one of the first ones that I was like, I couldn't believe how cool.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Tom Petty. I thought you were talking about Won't Back
No.
That's why I was like, wait, what?
But Don't Back Down off of
All Summer Long.
All summer long, right?
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, for
the
the
girls dig away the gasket wiped out. Feet in the air, you can hear them shout. That one.
Not my boys.
Yeah.
I gotta listen to their early stuff more. You guys know the early albums way better than me. I just find like my favorite ones, and I just get obsessed with them. And like the later and the earliest stuff, I'm definitely not as well versed in.
Yeah. So Don't Back Down's a cool one because of that. It goes up a half step, and then before going into the next verse, it modulates back down a half step. In a similar way, but although I think the half step piece is a little trickier than what he does in Don't Worry Baby, where the chorus is modulated up a whole step.
Yeah.
And then they go back down a whole step for the next verse. You know, very cool move, but I think the half step is even trickier. And that might be why Don't Back Down does sound a little bit jarring or something like that. It doesn't sound as natural as Don't Worry Baby.
I'll check that out.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the third one that I'm going to do Till I Die. This one has really good progression. And this one is kind of centered around the key of C major, but it uses a lot of different kind of interchanges different chords from the key of C major and C minor, which is cool. Like, so if you look at that first chord, right, it's that you would think of that more as like the sixth chord of C minor, right? So he's kind of, I think of that as he's taking the parallel minor key. So you're taking the key of C minor and you're using some of the chords, but then you're actually resolving it to major as opposed to minor. So we have so I mean, the ending going back to the top is interesting because he goes from G major 7 up to A flat major 7. But in terms of how I think of that, so like I said, we're in the key of C. We start in the flat 6th chord, and I love this suspended right here. And the thing that's so cool about that is if you look at the melody note, it goes, and then it's on E natural. So like there's that he really is emphasizing like the E flat for the beginning part, and then moves it up to get that major sound now, and then goes back down.
Where it's all right.
Sorry.
That's right. I thought he was asking about the song.
Yeah, I know, me too, for a second.
He's like, wait, what chord is that? And so the cool thing with the vocal melody there is like it's completely chromatic. Right, so it's cool how by interweaving those chords, he gets this chromatic vocal melody, and then I love this. So he's like goes to the 4 chord, but he's keeping that C note in the bottom, which is really beautiful sound. And then this is my favorite chord in the whole thing. So it's like this B sus4. So like that, to me, that is like the chord where it just kind of sticks out the most. It's the most shocking to me out of this whole thing, because I hear, and then all of a sudden, like it's so kind of like open but like dark at the same time. Then it resolves back to C major, and then from here we do E minor, and then G major.
With
So
the 9 on top too.
which one?
The E minor.
Oh, is
I mean, I'm pretty sure.
And then, so like at the very end, like those last 4 bars, it kind of seems like that could just be E minor, maybe, or I'm not sure. But to me, like the beginning part is kind of more clearly like in the key of C, the first 8 bars, and then this ending part is a little different because obviously G major 7 is not a chord you would see in the key of C. But then he uses that G major 7 chord to just move up a half step to go back to the top of the form, which is really cool. So interesting chromatic movement there.
Yeah, the F sharp to the G.
Yeah, wait, which one?
Like into the G major 7, or I guess
Yeah, the
G
G
flat
to the
technically.
A flat. So I mean, like the last, so like the G major 7 at the very end, and then how it's a half step up when you get to the top to the A flat major 7. I was just moving
Yeah.
that step. Yeah, I always love this progression.
Yeah, and that if you look at the first measure 1 and measure 3, that's that same relative move as Wake the World and what was the other one? This Whole World, going into the you know, it's that it's a flat 6, I guess, relative to the C, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's so cool how
There it
this
is, pop it up
really,
again.
This is awesome because I feel like we're learning from this too, because we're bringing up these things and then we're seeing them unfold in other areas, because I never would have thought of that. That's awesome. Yeah, the same thing from She Knows Me Too Well, and what was the other one that was?
She Knows Me Too Well, Wake the World, This Whole World. They all have that same move there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's great visually seeing them. If we do another part of this, Mike, I'm gonna definitely write up a chart. So
we'll do as many of these as you want. I'd be down to cover every song at a certain point. So.
Totally, just go through.
This is my favorite stuff to talk about.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much covers that one.
Mike, you picked 3 songs where I think Brian's the lyricist.
Yeah.
Oh, really? We'll have to see the other 2. See, I got 2 more. My next one, Warmth of the Sun. Brian the lyricist on that?
That's Mike.
That's Mike.
Okay.
Great, one of Mike's great lyrics too.
Yeah, probably one of his best.
Yeah.
So when I was writing, excuse me, when I was writing this out, I noticed that I never can tell if I think of this song in 6/8 or 4, but I wrote it in 6 because the guitar part is like.
Yeah.
Like that, to me, it has that 6/8 kind of feel, you know.
Yeah. After the key change too, the symbol, the ride symbol is so pronounced, and it's playing 6.
Yeah, it does this, right. Yeah, right.
I'll dream of her arms, you know. Yeah.
So this one is another cool example of mixing keys from the parallel major and the parallel minor, which just means that you're using chords from the key of C major and mixing them with chords in the key of C minor, which is nice. And that's very apparent in the first 4 bars. So you have C major, A minor 7, that. So like right off the bat, right, we're doing 1/6 in the key of C. And then it does E flat major to C minor 7. So now it's almost like you just switch to C minor, and you're doing the 3 chord and the 1 chord. And then he's back in the key of C again. He does the 2 chord.
How did he do it?
5. And now what I love here is he doesn't just hang on the 5 for 2 measures. He makes it augmented the second time, which is just another very tasteful little addition to the harmony. It just makes it, just that 1 chord alone makes the progression just infinitely better. Like if you just hung on the G for 2 measures, like it'd still be cool, but these little subtle changes he just adds so much to the harmony. And then we repeat it again. And now I'm already seeing it again from This Whole World, like going from the key of C to A major. So how he does that in this instance, right, he does D minor, then he goes to the 5 chord, and then he goes to E major to set it up to go to A major.
Yeah.
So that, from measure 13, you have. and then we're in A major, but only temporarily, really only for the 2 bars. Because then he turns it into a 2-5-1. So he does a 2-5-1 to G major, and then he just stays on G, then does that thing again where he makes it dominant and then augmented, and then it's perfect to go right back to the top, because that sets you right back up for the C major. So, I mean, so much great movement going on in here.
Yeah, so this is such like a masterful use of borrowing from the parallel key without, it literally doesn't even, it doesn't sound like jarring, or it doesn't sound like, oh, I know what he's doing. He's borrowing from the parallel key. It just sounds like it pulls at your heartstrings.
And I think a big part of what makes it work so well too is like the note choices in the vocal melody, like on top of it, because it's and then for the E flat, I'm sorry, just like that little, the way that it resolves into the D minor is just such a perfect little walk down to resolve in that D minor chord, where it's just what do you, I mean, I don't know what you would call that, if it's voice leading or if it's just the direction of the vocal melody, but it's just the way it just all interweaves together is just so perfect.
Yeah, and the intervals using there in the melody, I think there's some magic in those intervals. They almost sound like that. What you just played almost sounded like Disney music or something like that, like When You Wish Upon a Star or something like that. Like it just has that that like Moon River kind of Henry Mancini magical quality to it, you know?
They have that a lot of times with their intervals. There's like certain vocal melodies that'll just have certain interval movements that just really tug at my heartstrings. Like one that always gets me is that part in Your Summer Dream where it's like that, particularly that. I mean, it's just so perfect, and it's just so satisfying when you hear that C sharp minor chord. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah. So good.
One thing I would add to my ears is I think 22 I've heard is like a G6, which, so you get this really cool thing of the,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
like all this chromatic bouncing around.
Right, isn't that the vocal melody right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes right. I think that's the song Brian off of Sweet Insanity, isn't it? That same chord movement?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Right? That's the 6, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great song.
Yeah.
This is so much fun. I love talking about Brian's chords.
I know. So it's crazy because on its face, when you're looking at the chords visually, it's like if you really had to analyze this theoretically, there would be key changes all over the place, but they're really not key changes. You know, I think Nate was saying. I think you were right when you said it's like every 2 bars are whatever emotion is moving the song. It's not random. And what the glue that holds it together is the voice leading on the melodies. They just tie everything together, and they almost sweep it under the rug that you're modulating keys every second. You know,
you can almost just like go through this and then say like, all right, this is in the key of C major, and then white out all the chords that aren't in C major, and you'll have like a bunch of areas that are in it, but then all those in between things, it's like he's finding these ways just to interweave these interesting chords and then bring it back to the key somehow. Which I mean, such masterful writing. I mean, we keep coming back to this, but for the 60s, I mean, this is on just such a different level.
Yeah, 1963.
63, Jesus, wow. All right, and I got one more. All right, that was my 4th one.
I love the piano part on this song.
So good.
Oh, good. And the timpani is really
awesome. I'm just going to do it without dropped E flat. That's fine. So the interesting thing with this song is I always thought it started on E flat minor, but when I was listening to the chords, I couldn't find a G flat anywhere. It was like an E flat, just like an E flat with the 5. And then craziness going on there. So it starts
That was
with
gorgeous.
what was that?
That was gorgeous. Just listening to how you played that.
Song. Oh, thank you. I'm just trying to emulate what Brian's doing. We start with E flat 5, and then he just puts the G flat in the bass to make it minor, and then this F7. I like that. So the first 4 bars kind of looks like it's all around like E flat minor. And then you think it's going to resolve to, normally that you would expect that to resolve to E flat minor, right? Like a flat 6, right? Like just the two of us, something like that, right? But instead of resolving to E flat minor, he does E flat minor over D flat, and then the bass. If you look at the bass notes for the next couple bars, it just keeps going down chromatically until it gets to B flat. So it does this E flat minor. It does A flat 7, but he puts the C in the bass. And now from this point on, starting from the B minor, I think of this whole thing as like G flat major, kind of. I think of this like the 4 minor, resolves to the 1, and then A flat. Now, one of the things that's so interesting about this is we were talking about 2 5-1s a little bit before, but the chorus of this song starts on D flat 7. So this is actually a reverse 2-5. It's a 5-2, which I've never seen before, but it starts on D flat 7. Back to the 5. And the 2 again. And then he's taking that same progression, he just moves it up a minor third, right? There's E7 to B minor. Now, one of the things that's good about that is when he lands on the B minor chord, you see it's going to resolve to G flat major, right? So like I was saying, I kind of think of this as G flat major. So if you look at that, the B minor, it's like the 4 minor of G flat major, which is something we definitely see. But the thing that's so cool is he resolves to G flat with the D flat in the bass. And what he does when he gets to B minor, the bass note goes like this. And then that's perfect because then he just moves up a whole step, and now we're back to E flat again. And then the second section of this song, I don't have it written out, but that has some chords where I have no idea what's going on. The second whole instrumental part of this song is so wild. It has like a couple of chord voicings that I've never even like seen before. Like it has like this one. It's like an A flat in the bass, and then the notes are E, F sharp, G sharp, with an A flat in the bass.
Yeah, that's super weird.
That's the chord right before it goes back to. It's like
It's almost like a G sharp minor 7 sharp 5.
Something, yeah, it's something, yeah, sharp 5, no third, just the flat 7.
Yeah.
I think I might be doing it in the wrong key, but I will revisit that for the next one. But those are my 5. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on this one?
That one, it's like molasses. It's so smooth, and it's such a good use of chromaticism, which keeps coming up. But Brian's a master of chromatics, and it's not always like he's just doing the same thing. He finds ways to make it creative.
There's always new tricks. I particularly love these 4 chords: the E flat minor 7 with the D flat, and then the A flat over C, the B minor to the G flat over B flat. I mean, such perfect voice leading within the bass, and just every movement from one chord to the other is just so rich. It's such beautiful harmonic movement.
Really is.
And that 5-1, that 5-2 thing, I thought that was interesting because the A flat right here is not the start, because it's there are boys with whatever the words are, and then when he says don't talk it, that's D flat 7. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, he makes 7th chords not sound that offensive. Like sometimes I feel like their inherent purpose is to sound like in your face or like mean or something like that. But the way Brian arranges, he can make dominant 7th chord sound so sweet.
just a little note on the seventh chords. What you said was so great there. Like he uses them in such a way that it's not the traditional use of a seventh chord. And when he was, I mean, speaking to some of their earlier stuff where you would expect him to use a seven because it's more rocking, he would opt for the six in terms of harmony. You know, if you look at "Help Me Rhonda" or something, you know, and a lot of other songs where the bass is walking rather than going. Instead of the bass going like that, he's going like.
Yeah, good point.
Which is, you know, it's 6 and 9.
California Girls.
7, you know.
And the California Girls too, 1, 5, 6, 5.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think he has a love of sixths in their earlier stuff where you would expect to hear a 7. You know.
Even the main guitar line in "Help Me Rhonda," there's no 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a good song.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my 5. I'm going to take one. I go to the bathroom constantly, so I'm going to take one.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, right. Yep.
I drink a lot of water, so.
All right, time to get patriotic. So the first one I'm doing is "Spirit of America," which Brian wrote with Roger Christian in '63. And earlier I was talking about how mostly everything I learned about music theory came from learning these Beach Boys songs. And I think this song is a perfect example of showing like the rules and then how to break them. So it starts with the classic, 50s doo-wop progression. So what is that? 1,
1, 6, 4,
1, 6, 4, 5. Yeah. So sets that up for the chorus. In the beginning of the verse, the Bonneville Sunflats sing some strange things, strangest things, yeah. So there we're just in that feel, and then he mixes it up and sort of breaks the rules, so to say, by bringing in that dominant 7th chord, major chord that's a dominant 7th, which is out of the diatonic key. Mm-hmm. One says a jet into the stars, and then here we have that minor chord. Interesting, putting the bass note 7th in the bass, and then back. So it's an interest. It plays off of something where you know what to expect. It plays off that 50s ballad motif. Yet when the lyrics talk about like maybe things that are like scary or daring, man who would drive her. He brings in that weird chord that shifts the mood, harmonic minor, and then add anything that you want, bro. My roommate is a total music theory genius here.
Great.
Yeah. So not crazy stuff, but great use of different like flavors to change the emotion.
Yeah, it definitely adds a darkness when that F sharp comes in. It's cool. It's a nice contrast because you're kind of getting the generic, like surf rocky progression, and then all of a sudden that chord, you're like, oh, that's kind of like a little bit of a mood shift.
Yeah, and it's perfect use of like the lyrics and the music like working together to produce an emotion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love this song. I really do. Oh, you know what? I think that Al sings falsetto on parts of this song. Where do you know what I mean? Where it's either I think there's parts where Brian drops out for a second and the top note that you hear is Al. This is one of those surprising songs where Al's got a big secret part on it.
Yeah.
I can't think of the exact moments, but
that great blend that they had.
Yeah. Or I think it's that, I think I got to listen to it, but I think Al's harmony part is just so close at times to Brian's, and he's emulating his timbre, you know, that it sounds so, they sound so tight together. It almost sounds like two Brian's, you know?
Yeah.
That's awesome. One of the things that's so cool about these early songs too, like looking at something like this, and you see it like the slash chords slowly starting to get implemented, you know, like you see that one B minor 7 over A, and it's interesting because I feel like if you look at that part, like I can picture like if this song was written maybe a couple of years later, I feel like Brian would have put a G sharp in the bass of that E as well, you know, do the
Yeah.
even maybe like a G in the bass of the A. You know, I mean, he did stuff like that too, like putting the 7 in the bass. So it's cool because I'm seeing like I feel like he's used progressions like this before, but not with the addition of like using more slash chords. It takes a sound like this and gives it a completely different flavor, you know?
Totally. So I can go to my next one now.
Cool.
Same album and same general concept. So Be True to Your School, Brian and Mike. What I like about this, in similar with the last one, is it takes something. Yeah, it's perfect.
Oh, good.
It takes something where you feel like you know what to expect, and it totally flips it on its head. So the intro is pretty standard. It says, I tell him right away, now better buddy, you know. And then what comes in here, I love this, because you got the cheerleaders going in the single version, and it's like perfect way to build excitement of going into the next section, and again, like slash chords being used to sort of throw your perception off of what chord is what. And so with Mike staying on the F, but then the other guy's going up, you can picture like driving to the football game, the excitement of it all, and you're propelled right into the verse. And what's cool about the verse is you've got that rock and roll pattern going, so you think you know where you're gonna go. You think you're going to the 4,
Yeah.
But he takes you to a half step down from that. Which is, it gives the songs, like I was talking about movements that he created that would be catchy. I think that change sticks in people's head.
Yeah, you know where that change also pops up? Looking at it now, this is almost the exact progression as I Get Around in different keys.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the chorus of I Get Around, I think is in G, then it goes to E, and then A minor, right?
There's just like one more chord kind of squeezed in, right? And I Got Around because it's like after the G minor's like or maybe is it just E flat to C? It might be.
Oh, it's G, E, A minor, F, D.
Oh no, so I've got it wrong actually. Yeah, it's not the same as I Get Around.
Similar though.
Similar.
You can see like the development of those ideas.
Yeah. Not the same, no.
So then from that chord, he goes somewhere more predictable again. And then it throws in where you would have expected first. And then he brings in that major chord.
Yeah.
So like a really, really subtle, sort of like how we were talking about in The Warmth of the Sun, just one or two note changes within a chord to change the emotion and to keep like excitement. Because, you know, with a lot of these songs, if you just played like the regular chords and exactly what you'd expect, I don't think any of these songs would, you know, be sung like 60 years later. But
right,
when he puts in all these like unique harmonic ideas, it stays in people's heads forever.
Right.
Go for it.
What was really interesting about Brian Wilson in general, and Be True to Your School specifically, is it's still like, it's basically a 1-4-5 because he hits the 1-4-5. He just delays it. So he went 1 and then he went 5-7 of 6. So he takes you there. Then he goes to the 4, and then delaying it again, he goes to that.
You should just pull up a chair.
Oh, sure, why not?
He goes to that like major 2 chord.
Oh.
And then Nate, it ends going to the 5, right? Because you're
It's also right there. C major, yeah.
and then to F7. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that 2-5-1 again.
His mixing of the major and minor are really what makes that so cool, you know?
Definitely.
Nate, in that intro, when you played that intro part and you were talking about going between the F7 and the C minor, does it start on the F7 chord or does it start on the C minor, like that riff?
I think it starts on the F.
If it starts on the F, then it's that same thing I was talking about with Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder, where it's a 2-5, but it actually starts on the 5 and then goes to the 2.
Yeah.
It's like a reverse 2-5.
Oh, you're right.
And then also in the chorus, that G minor to E flat, that's that flat 6 thing we were talking about again, like that She Knows Me Too Well. But this case, it's minor instead of major.
Right.
It's so cool. Just like from talking about it and seeing all these things, you could just start to see all these little movements. This is awesome.
Yeah, you could also argue that C minor 7 over F. C minor is the relative minor of E flat. So if you look at that as an E flat over F, that's that chord from Good Vibrations.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that 9 in the bass. He loves that one.
Yeah, the 9 in the bass. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You know, that's that epic chord from Good Vibrations that shows up in California Girls.
And I like Nate. I love that you're picking stuff from the early period too, because it's good to see it in its infancy and see how it's developing. Even like I was saying, like with the other song, each of these songs you see like 1 slash chord, you know, and I'm sure as we go on in the years, there's going to be like at least 2 or 3 more popping up, you know?
Yeah, they're creeping
Most
in.
definitely.
Creeping in.
And this one, it like does the parallel key thing, but not like section wise, only per movement, like in momentarily. Like it's not like the verse or the chorus changes key. It's just like little snapshots change key.
Yeah, it's really similar to the first song too. Well, I guess no, it's different because in the first song he was in the key of A, right, and then he goes to F sharp's dominant. Was that the previous song?
Spirit
what
of
key was
Memory.
the last song?
Or a key of like E flat and then goes to G major.
Oh yeah, so that one was doing like dominant on the 3 chord. This one is doing dominant on the 6. So it's like 2 examples of different spots where you can switch them from minor to dominant, you know, to get a little bit of a different sound, different movement.
I feel like, and that's just understanding the feelings that the different chords produce in people, knowing when to tap into that.
Yeah. I think that like that 3 dominant is a big part of the surf rock sound for me. Like that's like, when I think of I Get Around, I'm picturing like that sound. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, totally.
It's such a vibe, that like movement, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. It really is. Yeah, going to that just brings a whole new level of excitement to the song. That's also in Don't Hurt My Little Sister, I think, when we're in B flat, and then the bridge though goes to D7, just like this, B flat to D7, you know? So there she goes, she ran in her room, she'll probably stand there the rest of the day. And then when Brian comes in, it's, why don't you love me?
Oh, yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah. You know? So it's that mood changer, you know, going from the dominant to the dominant third, I guess. Yeah. Right?
I gotta confess, I've never liked that song, but you just completely sold me on that song. Like I gotta listen to that song again. Like that song is awesome.
I love that song so much.
I don't know why I never got into it, but now I'm like, wow, hearing it just in that context. You know how like you hear a song differently sometimes, and you have a whole different appreciation for it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I just had to hear the progression.
Well, that song coupled with "Good to My Baby," those two songs back to back on that
oh
album.
my god,
Me, I'm like, that's like just those two songs just hit me so hard. I love it.
"Good to My Baby" has some insane transpositions. Like at the end of the
Yeah.
she's happy with "Good to My Baby," and then "Good to My Baby." Like that
Yeah.
bass, like, so much respect to Mike for that stuff.
And
Yeah.
I love that Brian's instrumental breaks or solos. They usually don't follow the verse. It's almost
Yeah.
he makes his instrumental parts are a second bridge or something like that. You know, they're usually standalone. Very cool.
Yeah. So unique.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the next one, Nate?
Yep. So I definitely wanted to get a Bruce song in here, and this song is so cool. Definitely a great use of slash chords to create this movement. So yeah, over your head starts with that idea. Sets you up in the key, then he does this chromatic thing. And then this chord, where did that come from?
Yeah.
It's like a like dominant 7 chord. And then I wish my piano's battery powered and its batteries are dead, but I love the let's see. I don't know why it doesn't sound good now. Oh, wait, there we go. How he has that like ascending bass over the chords that wouldn't produce that sound necessarily. But once the bass is emphasized, you can hear that in the chords. So then we're back to D. And then the C chord has that chromatic thing going to the A7. And that's C sharp in there. That's a super Bruce thing. Bruce uses the major 7 of the minor chord quite often. And that A sort of over the E minor with the A to predict is how we were talking about sometimes the slash chords with the bass, it predicts where we're headed next. So so then it's the same thing for the next part. And then the bridge, starting on the dominant 7th chord. I think in this case, it's good use of the dominant 7th chord sounding like offensive in a good way. He's bringing in that idea. Oh, I don't even know how to play this. With the B on top. I love that right there, the A7 to A minor. And then B, so we have that whole chromatic. And I'm glad you're home again. So it's oh, you can go.
I was just thinking that B7 going to G minor, I was wondering what that could be, but it's almost like a tritone substitution to B flat because it's G minor / B flat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting because anytime I see a dominant 7 chord and it goes down a half step, I just assume tritone sub, but I've never seen it like that where it's actually a slash chord. That's interesting. That's crazy.
Yeah, because I was like G minor, like I thought that would be like E minor,
Right.
but you were talking when you mentioned "Don't Talk with Your Head on My Shoulder." You're talking about that flat 6 chord. I can see that come up so much. Like it's such an important chord, and anything connected by a minor third, which is like G minor and E minor, it's really fascinating to me. I don't,
crazy how
I don't
much
have
stuff
much
comes
to
back
say
to
about
thirds.
it.
He uses that a lot.
Yeah.
He really does use that a lot, even to change keys. You know, he'll throw
Yeah.
So cool.
And I love like painting the picture with the words and the music together on that you may not live with me every day. Though that's just so striking.
Yeah. There's a lot of pretty movements in this. Yeah, also that C major chord that you pointed out, that's like one of my favorite parts too. And there's a couple of Brian uses that too. Like I'm pretty sure in That's Why God Made the Radio. I'm sorry. What's that chord right there? Yeah, it's in the key of C major, and he goes to B flat.
Yes.
He really wasn't afraid to use that the dominant 7th tone as a major chord.
Yeah, that's in it. Yeah, he did it there, and then he also does it on a song on No Peer Pressure. You know that one? It's like I'm all alone, sad because I'm not at home.
Oh, I'm feeling sad.
I'm feeling sad. Yeah.
Something like that. He'll do like that movement where it's the flat, like whatever key you're in, it's the flat 6, and then it leads to the 5. Something about that. It's like another third movement. Like so much stuff comes back to thirds. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
So my next one is totally an unknown gem that even a lot of hardcore Beach Boys fans don't know. And Winter Symphony, which was recorded around the time of their Merry Christmas sessions, which predated MIU, but most of the songs became MIU songs. Not this one though, but this one has incredible slash chords, borrowing from different keys and all that. So, do you want to play the bass notes?
Yeah, sure.
I was gonna do it on piano, but the piano died. But now I got something even better. You can just use the acoustic.
Terrible day for a piano to die.
I know, right?
What happened?
Oh, you gotta get out of here.
No, like I'm trapped behind the thing.
Yeah, Nate. Looking at these chords, this looks like this is the verse to Good Vibrations, where it's the starting on the mud, and you just keep going down.
Almost similar to that, like the Runaway chord set that you had brought up.
Yeah, Runaway or right, Walk Don't Run. Yep.
But yeah, I love how so he doesn't start off with the 7 initially, which he would have quite often because he starts on minor 7 chords a lot. But I like in this one how he saves it for the 2nd chord to bring out that minor. And so it's becoming on top and it's also coming below, you know, that B flat and then the A flat and then same thing again. And then he goes to that relative major, or not, parallel, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
meant. But yeah, that part is so effective.
Yeah.
Because you get used to the C minor feel, and then the words cuddle up in a cozy nook. It's like comforting, it's warm, and then you're in the new key. But you wouldn't even necessarily know when you're listening to it. Cuddle up in a cozy nook, the warm drink and a book. Flat 7 here again. the children outside. Back to that. The wandering cannibal. And this part, that little fake out. So that combination, that harmonic minor, the minor chord and then major 5, and then to that E flat. Warms my heart like a tropics. That almost puts us in. So he brings in the C minor idea, which relatively is E flat. So then he's just working his way up the scale, 1, 2, but then you get to the G chord. So that is a good turnaround for the C minor again.
Yeah, it's like still 3, but dominant to bring it back to the C minor.
And something cool is you think the song's over because he does a "All in a Winter Symphony" and ending on that major chord feels complete, but it's just a fake out because then he goes into that horn section back into the minor.
Oh, nice.
That's my favorite part.
So good. I could listen to that on loop forever.
There's a couple of chord movements in this too that are similar to Till I Die. Like if you see like there's like a C kind of tonal center and he's going between C minor and C major, right? And we see A flat major 7, which is the first chord of Till I Die. We see C major, B flat, like that flat 7 movement we were talking about again, starting on the flat 7 and playing major.
Yeah.
But then that time, instead of going to the 5, he goes to the flat 3 and then the 5. So he does kind of like he moves up a 4th and then goes to the 5.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I love his seamless like changes between major and minor.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah,
cool.
such a nice.
Yeah.
I just realized I might have sent you the wrong screenshot for my last song. Even though earlier I said I was doing
That's what I got.
yeah, right. I got mixed up. Did I send Strange Things Happen?
Yeah.
Okay, I meant to do Still Surfing, so I'll screenshot that and send it to you.
Oh, nice.
All right. Ready?
Yep. So
That's big enough.
yep, this one name's cut off, but this is Still Surfing from Summer in Paradise. This one was written by Mike and Terry Melcher, and I have a hypothesis about this song, and it could be totally false, but it's just sort of like my guess on how it came to be. So from various sources, I've been told that Mike has enough of a piano and has enough of a piano and guitar like knowledge to write like the genesis of his songs, and then it someone like Brian, or in this case Terry Melcher, would spice it up. So I can picture Mike, knowing his basic chords, writing something like he used to ride the sidewalk in a landlocked town, a solitary surfer, yeah, he got around. Just back and forth between and coming up with a song that would be fine, but probably forgettable. But and then you have Terry Melcher bringing these different like jazz voicings and different little things to bring the emotion in. And once you've got that there, it's a Beach Boys song. But the sidewalks in the landlocked town, the solitary surfer, he got around. He's at his favorite spots, where the best little 2-5-1 action going on. Or similar. Trying to the surfing scene. love that chord there because Brian will often bring in like that minor
Minor 4.
4 chord a lot.
Yeah.
But he'll bring it in on its own. But this song, there's something about like talking about like days gone by, like reflecting, and then those chords right side by side, that major to minor, it like perfectly conveys that feeling of what they're talking about, like
Yeah.
looking back on something. And then the chorus on He's Still Surfing, it sets you up for something that pretty standard that you would expect. On this G minor, you'd expect to go straight to C, but it does a very like Wilsonian thing, going to that G minor over C.
I never heard the term Wilsonian. I like that.
I've actually read that in a few books. I wish I made
That's
it
awesome.
up, but I've read it before.
There's got to be like a particular slash chord that's like the Wilsonian chord. You know?
Well, I've actually heard that. Oh man, I wish I remember who told me this. It may have been Philip Bardowell. He was lead guitar from like '97 to 2002, and he said that I think he's the one who told me this, that that there's a Wilson chord that you could say to session musicians and people in Hollywood, which is referring to that Good Vibrations chord with that like 9 in the bass.
Oh, so that's
that
it.
voicing. If you ask someone to play the Wilson chord, apparently a good musician or a good session musician would know what that voicing to play.
Interesting. That's awesome.
There we go.
That right there. And that's basically it, Nate. That G minor 7/C. I mean that's it again. That's basically a B flat over C. You know, with some extension on it. You know.
Yeah, I always think of that more as the 5 chord, but it has the flat. I think of it as the 5 sus chord.
I think of it as I think of it as the 4 over the 5. I think of it as
right. Yeah.
Like Don't Worry Baby. I picture it as the A.
Yeah. Exactly. And another cool thing is the first 3 changes of this song are the same as Please Let Me Wonder.
Ah.
Oh yeah.
But then it would have to go to C instead of going to B flat minor 6.
Yeah.
And also the F D minor G minor C
right
pattern. Or
yeah, because that's what happens the second time. Actually, it's
yeah.
That's wait. Actually, just play it again and just replace the B flat minor 6 with C. That might be Please Let Me Wonder.
Yeah. I always feel this way. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, oh my God.
It's cool because Terry Melcher was a student of the Beach Boys, going back to the Bruce and Terry days, where they covered the Beach Boys songs and made songs in a similar style. So it would totally make sense for him in the 90s to write songs, to have those Brianisms like ingrained in his own writing.
Right.
Or even, it wouldn't even surprise me with Mike singing these crazy harmony parts for all these years, where he could probably suggest an odd chord change. Even, I'm not sure if he'd say, oh yeah, major 13, but you know, he would probably know the stack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting to think about? Mike probably knows so much about theory, but would not be able to display it on an instrument other than his voice.
Yeah. He doesn't play piano at all?
I mean, I'm sure, I assume he does a little bit, because he's written stuff on his own. But I can't think of it. I've never seen anything of him playing piano.
No.
Seen a video of him playing
That'd probably
guitar.
look really funny if he was playing like piano and singing.
Yeah, can you? This too shall pass. Solo piano.
Like an
version.
Elton John or like a Billy Joel kind of thing.
Yeah. He plays a mean tenor sax.
Oh yeah.
He knows 2 notes. Honk, honk. It's like, is that a Canadian goose? Oh no, it's Mike playing a solo. Love it.
So funny.
Yeah, but I totally agree. He's definitely got the knowledge and the experience singing some complex moving parts that I wouldn't be surprised at all if he surprised people with his musical background. What do you guys think about that B flat minor 6? I love the minor 4 chord. That's like my favorite chord change. And to me, it's always been very Beatles-ish, like that.
Yeah, very George Harrison.
Yeah, very George Harrison, you know? And making it that minor, the minor 6 is just so cool. And like you said, it matches that emotion of like nostalgia or something. It almost sounds like, I don't know if you guys know gypsy music, like Django.
Yeah.
You know, like he's always using the minor 6. And it's got that mysterious sound to it, you know?
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
It brings you to like a black and white movie. It has like such a specific vibe to it.
It really does. It's like an nostalgic, mysterious kind of thing.
I've always associated the 4 minor with Surfer Girl. That's kind of always been like,
Me
that was
too.
like one of the first things that I've heard. And so I've always thought of the Beach Boys when I think of 4 minor, probably just specifically because of that. But there's plenty of examples with the Beatles, like Nowhere Man, the Beatles.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons. That's the only one I can think of.
Yeah,
right now,
I think that the Beatles more often would go from the 4 to the 4 minor, where I don't think, I don't think Surfer Girl does that. It goes directly to the 4 minor, right? Am I
Or
right?
Surfer Girl
no, it goes to the 4. Because it goes, it's really cool. It's D minor over, it's G minor over D, E flat 7, A flat.
Oh, you're right.
That bass, instead of doing the 3 chord, putting the D in the bottom, and then E flat 7. That's such a crazy movement. And that was what, 62?
he wrote it in 61, recorded in 63.
Wow.
Wrote it in his car in 61.
Yeah.
There's a slash chord in there. You know, even in 61, he's doing G minor over D.
Yeah, that's his jazz harmony knowledge from listening to the 4 Freshmen so much.
I gotta listen to the 4 Freshmen more. I've listened to some like greatest hits stuff, but I really gotta check out the albums.
Yeah, because instrumentally he wouldn't be playing a slash chord at that time. It was the vocals implying the slash chord.
Wow. Yeah,
Right.
you're right.
Yeah. So
Right.
the vocal chord would be an E flat, and the bass would be the instruments would all probably be playing an F, you know, at something like that. So
Yeah, because
very cool.
Yeah, that's wild. Let me turn the share on. Is that the last one?
yeah.
That was your 5th one, right? So we did it. We got
Yes,
through
it
15
was.
songs. That was awesome.
Woo!
That was so fun.
We did it. Yeah. You know what I think I'm gonna do when the video's done? I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna put timestamps for each song so people can look through, and if they see a song that they want to check out, make it a little bit easier than. I mean, obviously, if people want to listen to the whole thing, that's great.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of information. That was really awesome.
I know. I feel like a better musician after this.
Yeah, we got to do more of these. Do as many as you want. I'll cover all of the songs.
Me too. Can I bring it full circle 1 second? Something that popped into my head in the middle. Just the last thing is you really threw me for a loop, Mike, when you brought up Buddy Holly's Every Day, because now I'm trying to process that in the context, you know. So when we were looking at the first 3 songs, I brought up that move where it's down a whole step, you know. That I tend to forget that he goes to the 4 when he does "Don't Hurt My Little Sister." The part that stands out is the, you know, going down the whole steps.
Right.
Buddy Holly though emphasizes the 4, which makes it sound less kind of out there. You know, it sounds less out. You know, where he's going. He goes from A to D before going to G. So he is doing A, G, F. Another song that popped in my head from around that time that does that exact thing that Buddy Holly did was Be My Baby.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if Brian's ever heard that song, you know, if he was in but Be My Baby, I'm going to do it in C. But if you're in C, the bridge goes to, so won't you say you love me, to A. I'll make you so proud of me. So that was an E-A, now it's D. We'll make them turn their heads, to G. Every place we go, and then back to C. So it's almost like they're going E to D. They never, and then they go to C. They resolve to C. You know, so it's a similar move there. That pattern of chords there. You know.
And
Wait,
you
so
also got that dominant 3.
Got the dominant 3 right. You know, yeah. So very cool.
Is the Buddy Holly one though the same movement? Because I was thinking about it, because for some reason I thought it.
Like as I was playing it, it sounded like it.
Is it 4 chords too little though, or is it actually the same movement as "Don't Hurt My Little"? Because I feel like "Don't Hurt My Little Sister" is like there's 4 additional chords or something.
Don't hurt my little sister. So that's 6 chords, right?
6.
Yeah, so it's 6, and then Buddy Holly's is everywhere. Yes, you're right. It's only 4, right?
It's a little shorter, right? Yeah.
Shorter. So that's the thing that makes it Wilsonian is he goes down another whole step. You know.
Right. He adds 2 more. Yeah. That's awesome.
He adds 2 more. Right. Which "Be My Baby" and "Every Day," neither of those do that. So there's the Wilsonian spin on it.
That's it.
And he repeats in "California Girls" and repeats in "Good Vibrations." You know.
It's a really cool concept to just take something that everybody's been doing and just extend it a little bit more.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool.
I'm sure Mike Love scans every music theory book, every Beach Boy book, hoping to find Lovey, and after he heard about Wilsonian, to his dismay, he's still waiting.
Yeah, what would the Mike Love chord be? That should be a topic to explore in future episodes.
I think it's the Kokomo chromaticism. That's the concept to really take away there.
Oh yeah.
The 4 minor. I feel like 4 minor is very Mike Love.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think I
That's
hear
true.
the 4
That comes
minor,
back in a lot of his songs.
I hear 4 minor and I think of like Mike Love with like a really nice shirt and like a pair of slacks on, you know.
Totally.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this. This was a lot of fun, and we will
Thank you
timestamp
so
all
much.
of the songs, and we will definitely be doing this again. There's a ton more to explore, and I learned a lot.
Hell
so
yeah.
totally keep doing this.
Yeah, thanks for setting this up, Mike. I had a blast talking to you guys.
Yeah, this was so fun.
Great. Yeah.
Good to meet you guys. I've heard a lot about you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Mike, I've seen your guitar videos. They're so cool.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, they're really awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I
good.
appreciate it.
Good to meet you guys. Thanks
Nice
for
to
having
meet
me.
you. What's your name again?
Oh, I'm Charles. Or Charlie. I don't know.
I've heard a lot about you too. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I think I might have seen you in passing during the podcast a few times, but
Oh, probably.
this is the first time you've stopped and joined us. Feel free to join us anytime you want.
Hell yeah.
Can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, likewise.
Awesome.
All right. Have a good rest of your weekend, guys. We'll do this again soon.
Good hanging with you guys.
All right, thanks, guys.
Bye.